Lies of P is one of those games that is impossible to talk about divorced from its inspirations. It clearly takes quite a lot from previous FromSoft titles, primarily Bloodborne and Sekiro, but it has such a beautiful blend of mechanics from those games, which are executed at such a consistently high level that it sometimes transcends the titles it seeks to emulate. Don't get me wrong, I love FromSoft's games as much as the next guy, but the fact that Lies of P was able to consistently impress me with its boss fights after playing so many FromSoft games should tell you just how special this game is. The animations of every move of each boss is so clear, and often even on the first attempt of a boss, I felt like I knew when I needed to parry or dodge, even if I couldn't execute to a high enough level to beat it yet. It's hard for me to describe how different that feeling is when compared to FromSoft's games. In those games, I often feel like I couldn't have known how to dodge an attack until I'd seen it at least once, if not more. I also feel like, especially in Elden Ring, it was often unclear when a boss was going to do an extension of their attack combo, which could cause you to get hit for trying to punish a boss after you thought they were done attacking, but RNG decided that this time they would extend their combo. This just isn't a problem in Lies of P. It felt so freeing for the animations to be so clear that so much of the trial and error was removed from the fights. There are subtle differences in the animations, so you can feel when the boss is going to extend their combo, even if you don't know what exactly is different in the animation. Which made me feel like when I got hit, it was my fault more than in any other Souls-like game I've played. And god, the enemy variety in this game is the best in any Souls-like game I've played, hands down. There are so many types of enemies with super varied attacks, and a frankly ridiculous number of elite enemies, that sometimes have just as much health as a boss, and are used only once or twice in the whole game, like this Jester enemy, or this jumping toy puppet. Both are super unique enemies that are very difficult, and to my knowledge, only appear twice in the entire game. It's also incredible that you are encouraged to utilize both parrying and dodging. In Dark Souls, the majority of players will just use dodging, and in Sekiro, you use deflecting for most attacks. There are some enemies it's better to dodge on, and sometimes you are required to Mikiri counter or dodge specific attacks from enemies, but in general, it's best to deflect most attacks. In Lies of P, you can decide to dodge a lot of attacks, or you can decide to parry most attacks, but it encourages you to use both systems. They do this by building up a boss's stagger when you parry attacks, so in general, it is the higher risk, higher reward option. However, some attacks will knock you back quite far if you parry them. This means you have less time to punish the boss when compared to dodging the attack. At first I thought this was bad design, because parrying is more difficult, so it should always have the higher reward. But now I appreciate it, as it rewards players that really understand a boss's moveset and will decide to roll specific attacks to get a bigger punish, and to parry others when rolling wouldn't give as large of a punish as parrying does via building up the stagger bar. The easiest attack to show this on is the slam attack from Simon Manus. If you parry it, you don't get to punish him at all, but if you dodge to the side, you get to hit him a ton for free. I like the implementation of the stagger system. After parrying and attacking an enemy enough, their health bar will glow white for a limited amount of time. If you can hit the enemy with a charged attack while their health bar is glowing, then the enemy will become staggered, and while they're staggered, you can do a fatal attack which does massive damage. But if you take the time to learn how long a stagger lasts, you can attack quite a lot before finally doing the fatal attack. It's a fun little mini game to maximize the damage you deal before doing the fatal attack, but if you get too greedy, you lose out on a lot of damage. It can feel bad when you aren't given an opening to use a charged attack because the boss used certain moves, but this is mitigated if you get some upgrades which extend the duration they're vulnerable for. There's also red attacks which cannot be iframed through, and must either be dodged via good positioning or parried, so even players that are more comfortable dodging will be encouraged to parry sometimes, which can guide them into parrying more, which I think is the more fun way to play. Although one of the loading screen tips for red attacks is very misleading. It says red attacks cannot be blocked or dodged. You can dodge red attacks, you just cannot use the iframes from a dodge on the red attack. That really should have been worded better so as not to confuse new players into thinking the only option is to parry red attacks. The one consistent exception to the clear animations in Lies of P are grab attacks. I really love the red attacks to signify attacks that you can't iframe through, but I wish they did a similar thing for grab attacks, like making them yellow. So often I would see a boss raise its arm and get ready to time a parry, but I missed that they raised their arm at a slightly different angle and were actually about to grab me. This could be a skill issue, but I wish those attacks were clearly signified as you need to dodge this, like red attacks are with parrying. I just think by making those attacks glow a certain color, this problem would be solved entirely. Another great mechanic is guard regain. If you block an attack, you take reduced damage, but the damage you take goes into guard regain, which is the light red part of the health bar. If you hit an enemy while you have guard regain, you'll get some of that health back, but if you get hit without guarding while you have that guard regain, all of your guard regain is lost. Guard regain also slowly depletes over time. This system punishes you less for missing a parry as long as you're early instead of late, and it encourages more aggressive play, which again, I believe is the more fun way to play. This playstyle is further encouraged by the health regeneration of bosses. This makes it so you can't just learn how to punish a single attack and stay out of range waiting for the boss to use it again. You must learn their moveset and respond appropriately. This results in a combat system that encourages two forms of defense in different situations, which is significantly more engaging than any other combat system in a Souls game in my opinion, with the exception of maybe Sekiro. The level design in Lies of P has some high highs and low lows. There are some beautiful areas and a few creative shortcuts which are great. For example, this minecart explodes a wall to link back to the Stargazer, or this elevator takes you to a shack which can be unlocked from the inside, which connects to the Stargazer. In general, this type of shortcut is much better, as there are surprises, but on the other hand, there are countless crappy shortcuts with a door that you can only open from one side, which you can see the first time you get to a checkpoint, and know you'll unlock if you just follow the main path. The game also has very linear level design. To be fair, there isn't anything wrong with linear level design, and even within that linear design, there are still secret items to find and optional mini-bosses to fight and things like that. However, on the whole, you explore one area to get to a boss fight, which leads to a new area, and I'm sure this way of designing contributed massively to how well balanced all the boss fights are, but it does make the world feel much more gamey as opposed to an actual world you're exploring. This could have been helped by having more than one area you could explore at any given time, but that would of course worsen the balance of the game, so saying this is a flaw doesn't feel fair when it's a decision I'm sure the game developers made very carefully, but that decision does come with its pros and cons. And to be fair, I don't think any game with an open world kind of design has solved this problem yet. Maybe it isn't really feasible to solve in a satisfying way, but I would love to play a game that did manage to have great level balancing and multiple locations to explore at any given time. The only realistic way of solving this is some kind of level scaling, but that comes with a whole host of other drawbacks that I won't bother going into here. I'll just say I don't think it's a silver bullet that can solve this issue. One way Lies of P does manage to excel in exploration is through the P organ system. The P organ system is something close to a skill tree you would find in other games. By finding quartz in the world, you can unlock a new ability, which can do anything from increasing the white stagger window to allowing you to heal some guard regain after landing parries. By filling all the slots in a node, you unlock that node. Nodes give an extra benefit, which can be things like adding an amulet slot or giving you a second dash. This system rewards exploration so much, as these abilities are incredibly powerful and really fun to unlock. But to find the quartz needed to unlock those abilities, you must defeat elite enemies or find hidden chests. The P organ also provides a lot of build variety and interesting decisions to make. So many of the abilities and nodes are incredibly powerful and can change how you play, but you won't be able to get anywhere near all of them unless you play a couple rounds of New Game Plus. One way the exploration doesn't work so well is through weapon upgrade materials. In Lies of P, there's this really creative weapon creation mechanic, where you can combine handles and blades to create new weapons from two halves of different weapons. This system should massively encourage experimentation with a ton of different weapon types, but unfortunately this system clashes with the incredibly limited upgrade materials you find while exploring. So often you'll upgrade the weapon you're currently using and not have enough materials to upgrade even a second weapon to close to how upgraded your main weapon is. So then you're forced to choose. Do you keep using the weapon you've already upgraded, or do you switch anyway to a different weapon to do significantly less damage for a significant amount of time? It's so sad, because honestly I really don't think this is a difficult problem to solve, but it impacts the game quite negatively. One of the most elegant solutions I can think of is putting various levels of sharpening stones throughout the world, which are infinite use. That way, you can upgrade as many weapons as you want to the current level of your best sharpening stone. And there still could be multiples of a single sharpening stone level in the world, so if a player misses one, they can find a different one later, or you could hide a higher tier one in secret locations, so players that explore thoroughly are rewarded with a better weapon for an upcoming fight before players that miss that secret could find it. Another solution, which I think is worse than the one I just suggested, but would take almost no changes to the game, is allowing players to reset their weapon levels to get all their materials back, just like you can respec their stats and their P organ. It's honestly a little baffling to me that something wasn't done to solve this issue. The other 3 parts of combat I haven't mentioned up till this point are Fable Arts, prosthetic arms, and weapon durability. Each weapon has 2 Fable Arts, which are generally highly damaging abilities or a defensive tool. Each weapon handle and blade has 1 art tied to it, so you can mix and match them to get who you like. The prosthetic arms are abilities you can use a limited amount that are recharged at checkpoints. They are generally good at applying status effects or stagger damage, depending on which you use. They can also be upgraded, which provides another reward for exploration and fighting elite enemies. In Lies of P, weapon durability goes down quite quickly, especially when parrying. So in the middle of fights, you'll need to run away and use your grindstone to repair your weapon. At first I didn't like this system, and I was really put off by needing to break the flow of combat to run away and repair my weapon. But this system goes both ways. Enemies' weapons will break if you parry them enough, and once their weapon breaks, they will typically have greatly reduced range and damage, making the fight significantly easier from that point. I think this is a good way of rewarding the parrying playstyle, but it can make fights lose some tension towards the end. Even if you are low on healing, if the boss's weapon is broken, you'll probably be able to win as they do so little damage. It would be really weird if only enemy weapons could be broken, so this system makes sense, and it introduces one more thing to manage to the player. Like, do I take time while the boss is staggered to grind my weapon and lose out on some damage, or do I put that off and deal with it while they're attacking me? There's also special grindstones you can equip that have limited uses between checkpoints, which apply a debuff to enemies hit by your weapon, like burning or poison, which are better against specific types of enemies. So you can swap them to use one that is more powerful against the boss you're facing to get a small advantage. You can decide to use it at the start of the fight, or wait to use it when you can get a bigger punish with it at the cost of needing to find a time to use it. This game introduces a lot of quality of life features to the genre which are sorely needed, like your ergo amount turning blue when you have enough to level up, and items being a bright blue which makes them stand out in the world. Things like this little broken ledge at the top of the hotel, making it so you don't have to run all the way around to get back down to the bottom, show a lot of care was put into the game. There are also icons on fast travel locations which tell you if an NPC has something for you to do, which is an amazing time saver. One of my favorite introductions to the genre Lies of P adds is the ability to recharge your last healing charge by attacking. It makes it feel so much more likely that you'll be able to clutch up and win a boss fight even if you're out of healing, which can create really hype moments. But then there are other quality of life features I really wish were in the game, and it feels all the more painful that they aren't there when so many others are. Like, why the hell can't I level up at a Stargazer? I hate having to teleport back to the hotel every single time I want to level up, which is made even more baffling when this does become available later in the game, which honestly just felt like a slap in the face. Like, I get that you want to encourage me to go back to the hotel to check on the NPCs there and whatnot, but I shouldn't have to level up. That just introduces 2 loading screens to the process. And you still would need to go back to the hotel frequently to upgrade your P organ, your weapon, and your prosthetic arms, as well as buying items from the shops. That would have been more than enough. There really should be a visible posture bar on bosses. It would go a long way towards showing players just how effective parrying is at breaking posture, and make it feel a lot more rewarding. It would also allow you to know when a charged attack or parry will stagger a boss, which could enable you to play around that information. There's other features I would really like as well. Like, I wish I could automatically use my ergo clumps in the level up screen if I have enough to get to another level. Instead, I have to painfully exit the screen, open my inventory, do some math on how many chunks I need to use to get to the next level up point, and then re-enter the level up screen. For the most part, the camera functions well. However, sometimes if you get pushed up against a wall, you won't be able to see shit. The camera really should just be able to phase through walls in situations like that, so you can still see the telegraphs of attacks. Sometimes when you knock a boss or enemy to the ground, you can't hit them, but sometimes you can, so you want to try, but if you can't, then you just wasted time you could have used to position, heal, or grind your weapon. It really should have been made clear, either make enemies invincible during all get-up animations, or make them vulnerable during all of them, but having some be invincible and some not is really confusing. In the same vein, most bosses you can use a Fable Art when they're staggered, and then fatal attack them. But in later boss fights, if you try to do that, it will knock them out of the stagger, which can feel stupid because you thought that was something you could just do. It should have been that either all bosses can be Fable attack while staggered, or none can. I wish status effects would disappear rapidly when you are out of combat. This is especially frustrating with Disruption in Collapsing Krat. Disruption insta-kills you when it fills up, so you often have to sit there and wait for it to dissipate before continuing, which is just a waste of time. Another huge gripe I have is being unable to pause the game. This is a single player game. If something comes up and I need to get up from the computer for a second, I should be able to do so without being killed. In my opinion, there is no excuse to not have pausing in a single player game. Period. Now I'd like to go into depth on my thoughts on the major bosses of the game, starting with the Parade Master. The Parade Master is a good introductory fight. It's obviously super simple because it's the first boss, but its attacks are well telegraphed and fairly easy to parry. His belly flop attack is cool, and that early on you may be surprised that you can parry it. Scrapped Watchman's first phase is pretty easy, but in his second phase he becomes electrified and some of his attacks leave a mark on the ground, which will explode a second after his attack. This makes it so if you parry his attack, you must dodge right away after parrying. This can make parrying his attacks in the second phase feel less rewarding. I think this is to encourage you to learn that sometimes dodging an attack you could parry will actually give you a bigger punish. Of course I didn't learn this here because I'm stubborn, but it does discourage the pure parry playstyle. King's Flame Fuko is a fine fight, but I do think the kick attack is bullshit. I legitimately think it comes out too fast to be reactable, but I might need to just get good. Other than that, he is honestly just a super standard fight and I don't have anything interesting to say about him. Fallen Archbishop Ardreas is pretty fun, and learning to parry his 2 swipes with his tongue is great. I really like that in the second phase you have the choice of which side you want to fight. However, I think most people will find the beast side easier, as that's what you've just fought in the first phase, and there isn't really a lot of encouragement to try to fight the other side. It'd be cool to combine 2 fights you've seen before and put one on each side, so that you already know both sides and can go back and forth between fighting them. I think this concept has a lot of potential, it just wasn't fully realized here. I don't love the first Black Rabbit Brotherhood fight, but it isn't terrible. The little siblings will tag in and fight you every 25% health or so, and the eldest brother will take a back seat, just doing his dash attack at you every once in a while, so it isn't really a true 2v1. But sometimes it just feels like the eldest brother will just not de-aggro, and you're forced to run away until he does, because you can't dodge or parry both of their attacks at once. The fight is also a little anticlimactic, as when you're getting the eldest low, if you have been perfect parrying him, he'll have broken his weapon, and all the siblings will be dead, so it's way easier at the end. But the fight is still hard, so it's fair enough. The King of Puppets is my second favorite fight in the game. The first phase has super clear animations, and it feels really good to master that fight, because there's a second fight behind it. You can get in such an amazing flow state where you know exactly how to respond to every move perfectly, and it feels incredible. The Romeo fight is really epic. He moves so quickly, and it's really satisfying to learn the rhythm of his 5-hit combo and parry all of them perfectly. But I still really hate that these 2 fights are back to back. I think there needs to be a really good reason for putting 2 completely different fights back to back, and I don't think that reason really exists here. You have to beat the first to even get a tiny attempt at the second, and if you're like me, it will take many attempts before you get to the second boss with a reasonable amount of healing. That combined with how quick he is made me die many times to him before I really understood what I needed to do. It's also fucking absurd that there's a second phase to Romeo. The fire spin move that has like a 20-hit combo is fucking bullshit, and putting that so deep into a fight is so cruel. I died to that move several times and I felt like there was very little I could have done. The move where he puts his scythe behind your head also feels a little off, like there is slightly too little time to react with a sideways dodge out of it. God, the animations on Champion Victor are really fucking good. At first, it feels so daunting to parry 5 punches in a row, and the timing on them feels so weird because they're all slightly delayed. But mastering that and parrying them all perfectly is so satisfying. He also has a growl audio cue for his grab, which is so nice. It makes it super clear when it's going to happen, so there's no guesswork of you trying to parry and just getting fucked by a grab. Audio cues are super underutilized in these types of games. The only flaw I see with this fight is that phase 2 is honestly easier, as he has more windows to punish him. But he does have extra hits on his already existing combos, which can throw you off your rhythm from the first phase. But once you know they are coming, they're easy to parry, and then it's easier to build up Stagger. It can feel lame when you're about to stagger him when he's about to go to phase 2, so you don't get any free damage. But I like that the second phase of the fight is an extension of the first, and it's triggered at half health instead of being a second health bar. Those 2 things make it feel way better than the King of Puppets' second fight. In phase 2, when he gets staggered, he also does an extra attack to punish you for mindlessly attacking. which feels a little cheap the first time you see it, because that's never happened up till this point in the game, but it will become very commonplace in the upcoming bosses, so it becomes normal to expect it. And because it's only one attack, it's a good lesson to watch out for that in future fights without actually punishing you too hard. The green monster is a huge missed opportunity. The second phase being a fight you've already seen before is a great idea. That way you already know the moveset, and it feels fair to be put behind another fight. But it shares very few of the same moves with the Scrapped Watchman. It would have been so amazing to kill the first phase, and then it transforms into a hybrid of the two bosses, of which you know their moves, so it feels fair. Instead it has mostly new moves. But the moves it does have aren't bad or anything, and it's still a fun fight. I just can't help but be sad about what I see to be missed potential. I have nothing to say about the Corrupted Parade Master, other than it's annoying as fuck that he applies decay so rapidly, so you have to constantly repair your weapon. Other than that, he's a solid rematch fight, but he's still very simple. The second Black Rabbit Brotherhood fight is the worst fight in the game by a mile. 3v1 is just annoying as fuck. It's not even that hard. I beat it quickly compared to many of the other bosses, but it's so annoying to fight. Two of them just throw projectiles at you while the game rotates between one of them being the primary attacker, so you feel like you should just focus the one that's chasing you. But sometimes you can't really do that, because you need to get two of the younger siblings low at the same time. This is due to the eldest spawning once you kill two of them, so if you don't kill the last two in quick succession, you're going to be in a 2v1 with the eldest, and his new shockwave attack makes that super annoying. I can confidently say with enough practice I could no-hit most of the bosses in the game. It might be difficult, and it might take me a dozen hours, but I could do it. This boss I do not feel like that's the case. The second phase isn't bad though, as it's a rematch against the eldest brother, so you know most of the moveset, and it's a pretty fun fight. Loxasia the Complete is the best boss in the game, hands down. The first phase feels great to master. I love her 9-hit combo with ramping speed. You can really get in the zone and feel when you need to parry, and it feels so fucking satisfying. Which I know I've said about a lot of parry strings, but it's even more true here. The second phase is super frantic, but because the first phase isn't too hard, it doesn't feel too bad to die to the second. Parrying the lightning balls back at her is a super fun thing to do, and the fact that it does damage to her is fantastic. It makes the fight so much shorter if you parry them as opposed to dodging. The one bad part about the fight is the big dash attack she does after she fires 8 lightning bolts. It is really difficult to nail the timing of that parry, because by the time she starts moving, it's too late, and you don't get to see the move a lot to learn it properly. And it's super punishing to miss that parry, as not only does it do a ton of damage, but you lose the chance to punish her even if you manage to parry everything but that attack. Attacks that are easy to dodge or parry can do a lot of damage, as if you get hit by an attack that is easy to dodge or parry, then it's a big mistake. In the same vein, getting hit by an attack which is difficult to avoid should be punished less harshly. That is generally the case, but there are a few exceptions. And maybe it's okay for Fury attacks to do more, as they're well telegraphed, even if the timing can be difficult, but some moves like that dash from Loxasia do not fit this mold. Simon Manus is a pretty good fight. The first phase is really short and super easy after your first couple tries. The second phase is super frantic, but still manages to feel fair. Like I mentioned before, his downward slam knocks you back so far when you parry it that you don't get to punish him for it. But if you dodge away, you can stay close and punish him, so you are rewarded for learning to dodge that and utilizing dodging and parrying. In the second phase, the attack where he puts 3 blue circles beneath you makes you feel like you have to play passive, because if you don't, those will get overlapped with another attack you need to dodge or parry, and you won't be able to do both. So that move messes with the flow of the fight. Luckily that move is used sparingly. Simon also jumps up super high to do a red attack. So high in fact that the camera can't keep both the boss and the player on the screen sometimes. This means you can't even see the telegraph of the attack you need to parry. This happens in some other fights too, but it is by far the worst here just because of how high he jumps. Something should have been done to fix this, even something as simple as it automatically breaking your lock-on when he jumps up. Nameless Puppet is a good fight, though at first I didn't really like that it even existed, as Simon Manus felt like a good climax. And then you go down an elevator into a bland looking room and fight a puppet they couldn't even bother to fucking name. And god, does Geppetto's talking during the fight get on my fucking nerves. The first phase is pretty short and easy, but as with most fights, the animations are clear and it felt like I could parry with them without memorization. The second phase is terrifying the first time you see it, as he moves so quickly and has a ton of different attacks. Both of those combined make the fight feel so scary, and you have to stay on your toes trying to read what movie's trying to do as quickly as you can so you can respond appropriately. Two minor things I couldn't fit into the script are that records are a great collectible to find in the world and the music on them is fantastic, and that I really hate that there are enemies in the area after you find Sophia's body. This should be a somber moment, and I shouldn't be killing the same enemy for the 20th time. Just let the sad music play while I climb the tower. This honestly ruined one of the better emotional moments in the game. Lies of P may be my favorite Souls-like now, which feels insane to say because of how much I loved Sekiro and Elden Ring, despite its issues. At the end of the day, those are great games, but what I care most about in these games are the boss fights. And on the whole, the bosses in Lies of P are better designed and the combat systems are excellent, so even though the level design is slightly worse, I found myself enjoying my time with Lies of P more. I couldn't be more excited to play NeoWiz's next game as Dorothy.